Look, I'm fully aware that this whole video may just be an old man rant in the body of a nerdy 22-year-old, but I mean, come on. Witchy ASMR?
That was my costume.
I can't be the only one that hates this. As I'm sure many of you know, just last week, Marvel released its latest television show, Agatha All Along, a spin-off show of a spin-off show, which I'm terribly concerned was greenlit after the success of an in-world pop jingle.
It's been Agatha all along.
In my opinion, it wasn't the wisest choice by the multi-billion-dollar film studio, but then again, I haven't really been a fan of many of Marvel's choices post-Endgame. Regardless, I had little interest in the show, and so decided to not watch it. That was until the press began.
That Agatha is the gayest project Marvel has ever done. Marvel project ever. Do you agree? Agatha is the gayest Marvel project yet. The gayest Marvel project. The gayest Marvel project to date. Do you agree?
It better be.
Yeah.
Now, before you rush to the comments to call me a homophobic bigot, I'll be honest with you. I'm a Catholic. It's something I've talked about in several videos now. And as a Catholic, I have quite a few moral issues with a lot of aspects of modern media. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. See, in reflecting on my frustrations about the fast-emerging press coverage, content, and reviews around Agatha All Along, I stumbled upon a larger realization. Agatha All Along is the epitome of everything I despise about modern storytelling. Not because of any LGBT controversy, but because everything about it, from the marketing all the way up to the first few episodes of the show, seemed to lack any substance at all. It's fast food television, you know, and if the MCU of old is a quarter pounder with cheese, then this is just like a sad, undercooked nugget. If you don't know, Agatha All Along is the sequel series to the show WandaVision, the second installment in what I understand is going to be a trilogy of seasons, each focusing on a different character. Some people have complained that the MCU has gone too far with their expanded world building, and maybe they have, but the world builder in me does sort of love that idea. I even enjoyed the previous show, WandaVision, until it descended into some questionable moral conclusions, but we'll get to that in just a bit. Because before Agatha All Along even premiered, we were all hit with a wave of articles and news coverage and videos talking about how this show is the gayest Marvel show to date, and that this time it had naughty words. A familiar tactic, and a little something the industry likes to call outrage marketing. Outrage marketing is defined as a viral marketing technique that involves intentionally creating a strong emotional reaction in an audience to promote a brand. This has become a favorite technique of Hollywood in recent years. Right before a movie or show's release, the studios and press will highlight its ideological values, so that when the subpar content premieres, they can retreat behind claims of sexism or racism or even wokeism. Yes, even right-wing companies have been guilty of this. And while it may earn some quick bucks and even a laugh from a small portion of the audience, it fundamentally poisons the well. One of the most impressive things about Marvel in its heyday is that it found a way to combine heartfelt quality storytelling with a crowd-pleasing action film that could be enjoyed by normies and nerds alike. But with past projects like She-Hulk, The Marvels, and most recently Agatha All Along, instead of depending on that story and the content itself, they started off by taking a side, choosing a camp, and implying that anyone who doesn't like either these statements or the show itself is morally lacking. And that is just unbelievably frustrating. I mean, the fundamental purpose of marketing is to communicate the point and purpose of your product to as many people as is humanly possible. It alienates your audience before the content even airs. I mean, if you had asked me what this show was about before I even watched it, I would have told you it was the more liberal equivalent of a cheesy Christian movie, complete with preaching, bad acting, and an overzealous focus on propaganda as opposed to powerful thematic resonance. Which brings me to the show itself. Maybe it's just because I'm coming off of Rings of Power and Star Wars Acolyte, but if I'm being honest, the first few episodes actually weren't as bad as I thought they would be. It starts similarly to WandaVision, using the concept of a character trapped in a spell to explore a mini plot of genre television. This time, not sitcoms, but a crime procedural. Despite it being written as tongue-in-cheek, I was actually kind of enjoying the opening until 15 minutes in, Agatha broke free of the spell, and everything stopped. And that was the first big mistake. In an effort to parody more serious crime shows like True Detective, Agatha All Along spent the first half of the first episode demonstrating the acting of Katheryn Hahn and the rest of the cast, as well as the compelling cinematography and even directing. So when we finally did come back to the real world, I was even more disappointed. From there, the show descended into what I can only describe as raunchy wine mom rom-com meets Hocus Pocus. Not so much a dark horror show about witches, but just vaguely witchy. And while I'm sure that there's an audience out there that enjoys that, this certainly was a departure from what the average Marvel fan enjoys. You know, the people who have been watching the subsequent hours and hours of movies and television required to even understand where this show is starting from. There were a few moments where I actually had hope. Aubrey Plaza was weird and disturbing, and I liked that. I think if you actually learn about the occult origins of witches and witchcraft and the fact that the protagonist of the show is a straight-up villain, you could have a really interesting story on your hands. But instead, every few seconds the show would shatter the tension and drama with some quirky quip or pop culture reference. I don't know if I just have a bad sense of humor or I don't understand the language of my generation, but to me, it just reduced every scene to a joke. The show refused to take itself, its characters, and the stakes of the story seriously, so why should we? As an example, let's look at the end of episode 2. Agatha has lost her powers, and in an attempt to regain them, must create a coven of witches and walk the witch's road, a magical quest of existentially dangerous proportions. And so, as a part of the ritual to open the doorway, the witches sing a song.
All that's foul and fair.
First of all, it's just terribly auto-tuned. So it's immediately apparent that nobody in the room is actually singing this song and kind of shatters all the immersion in the moment from the start, which is tragic because if you look at some of the behind the scenes footage and like the D23 performances, it's clear that the actors could actually sing this song. It's just that I guess they didn't. But after 2.5 minutes of trying to build this tension, the door to the witch's road has still not appeared. Instead of leaning into the drama of this moment, the show decides to throw away what little momentum they have by having the characters have this like stupid petty argument.
Well, if she wasn't so pitchy.
Yeah, did you not hear you? Because the voice doesn't
Do not insult me. I have perfect taste.
I thought we sounded great.
Let's stop for a second and compare that to this scene in Avengers. The team has just recently been assembled, and Tony Stark, out of curiosity and maybe a little bit of malice, begins to push and prod Bruce Banner to see if he'll really turn into the Hulk.
Why shouldn't the guy let off a little steam?
You know damn well why. Back off.
Oh, I'm starting to want you to make me. Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
I know guys with none of that worth 10 of you. I've seen the footage. The only thing you really fight for is yourself. You're not the guy to make the sacrifice play. You know, you may not be a threat, but you better stop pretending to be a hero.
A hero? Like you? You're a laboratory experiment, Rogers. Everything special about you came out of a bottle.
Sure, Stark is quippy, and while the audience may laugh, it's certainly not a joke to him. They let the tension rise, and then we have this fantastic interaction between Cap and Iron Man, which is not only genius, but fundamentally establishes the philosophical differences of these two characters, and an arc of conflict and redemption that will span 10 films. That's good writing. But moving past the specifics of scene-to-scene criticism, we get to the underlying morality of the narrative. Now, I'm not talking about what I do or don't approve of personally. I'm talking about what the story says about good and evil. Superheroes are a sort of modern version of the mythic hero. Figures of old through whose wild adventures and tragedies we can discover our own faults and failings and learn to strive for virtue, heroism, and ultimately, moral perfection. Over the years, as storytelling has become more nuanced with a heavier focus on character points of view, this presentation of good and evil has become more nuanced. But I don't think it ever disappeared. It's always been about good versus evil, right versus wrong, and what it means to be a hero. That's why I think these Marvel films have been so universally enjoyable. But in recent years, Marvel has taken a sort of a formless, inoffensive approach to morality. WandaVision, this show's predecessor, greatly suffered from this. I actually enjoyed the show and its fresh, stylistic approach, but in the final episodes, the plot went south, ending with Wanda kind of just being forgiven for all the evil she's done, with the writers in the show doing their best to frame her actions of selfishness, puppetry, and mass manipulation as good.
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
And this show follows suit. Witches are generally evil, and always have been, and Agatha was no different. She was the clear moral evil, the antagonist amidst the traumatized struggles of Wanda Maximoff. But now she's back, and she's kinda good? Are we supposed to like her? And if so, what does that say about the heroes of the MCU? In light of stories like Game of Thrones, modern storytellers have begun to mistake moral ambiguity for maturity. But without a clear, unified understanding of morality, it's almost impossible to have a satisfyingly conclusive narrative. Just because a villain has reasons for doing what they do doesn't make them good. I mean, everyone has reasons for doing what they do. So, to quote The Incredibles,
When everyone's super.
No one will be.
while the show itself doesn't stoop to the levels of insufferability demonstrated in its press and marketing, at least not yet, it was just okay, and certainly not something made for me. It's a corporate cash grab, dripping with the mindsets and trend-setting of modernity, and the farthest thing from a transcendent piece of art, or even just a mindlessly enjoyable one. It's a waste of time, money, and potential, while disrespecting the already existing fan base that made Marvel the titan that it is today. And fundamentally, the epitome of everything that's wrong with modern Hollywood storytelling. But these are just my thoughts on the matter. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Did you enjoy Agatha All Along? Did you enjoy WandaVision? What are your thoughts on the trajectory of the modern Marvel Cinematic Universe? And no matter what multiverse you're from, don't forget, keep reading, keep writing, and I will see you all in the next video.